I've been thinking about liminal spaces, the transitions between rooms. Stanley Kubrick does a brilliant job at showing this unsettling space. It's like a hallway that's also kind of a room, an undesignated, shadowy space with too many angles and corners that we can't see around. We like to put things in boxes or categorize ourselves and others. But what I identify with as a human being, beyond just being a human being, is also the cross I die on, meaning that I will always become what I identify with, for better or worse. So therefore, if I say I have Parkinson's, that reinforces it every time I say it. But if I just say, I live with Parkinson's, or Parkinson's is a diagnosis I've been given, or I work with a neurological disease, because that way it can be named in a different capacity, and there might be distance from my body, mind, soul, and a debilitating, progressive, and curable neurological disorder, which is a killer. People will say they don't die, quote, from Parkinson's. Show me complications to my kidney and shoulder and back that don't have anything to do with Parkinson's. And I'll show you an ostrich sticking its head in the sand. There's no such thing. It's all connected. Like the song we sung when we were little. Hip bone's connected to the knee bone's connected to the foot bone. What a fun song that was. And such truth. And we are connected to each other, just like we talked about with the roots of the trees. Or a tapestry. If I rip one out, there's a space there, there's a snag, there's a hole. When we, like the butterfly effect, what happens on one side of the world does affect us. When they're injecting shrimp with chlorine or whatever, those fillers in China, and they ship that shrimp over on ice on boats and we eat it. It affects us. Us meaning the United States. See how I just did that? Us and them. I've already set it up from China. See? That's an example. What if there were no boundaries? What if we all sat one-on-one, had a conversation, broke bread together, whatever? Maybe not bread because I'm gluten-free, but you get the picture. I have to be gluten-free or I get really sick. Some servers and some chefs and prep people just don't believe is real. Tom Waits joked about freeing the glutens, That's the one time I can honestly say, fuck you, Tom. Love your work, but fuck you. And there I am, identifying as a person with celiac disease. See, the ego gets snagged again. My point is that we can get caught by anything. Anything we can say, I am this. It will reinforce it. And yet we've been to the gratitude cafe where you had to order your food by saying, I am love. I am radiance. Oh, barf. I don't want a plate of radiance, sir. I would like some beans and rice. Let's be real. But the names we call ourselves do matter. So, how can you identify in a way that's a little more healthy, productive, or maybe something that benefits you and others? I like to be useful. I need to have a purpose and be useful. Brad McDaniels talks a lot about this when he does his work on Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is Man's Search for Meaning. I was talking to someone else the other day about Eric Fromm. To be or to do, basically. So much more to it than that. We all can be. It's available to us to stay in this moment, to drop in without preconceived notions. Look, I want to honor cultural differences as much as anyone else. But I believe these are more dividing than unifying. That kind of tribalism is not that healthy sometimes. And again, I don't have any horse in this race. I'm not against tribalism itself. I'm just saying, when the fundamentalism creeps in, like, I'm right, I'm certain, you're wrong, us and them, we all think we're the good guys, right? I don't know about you, but I don't feel like the good guy sometimes. Not where I live, not who I am, not in this skin. I have some shame from even the privilege of being born in the time period I've been born in, and just who I am and who I was brought up with teachers, with a family who loved me. I recognize how fortunate, how blessed I am. These things are not promised to anyone. I know someone who was beaten every day of his childhood. He's remarkably kind. That's wisdom. To take agony, trauma, loss, pain, all this pain, and rework it into the wisdom of knowing that there's no escape hatch. So you have to sit in it and work with it. That is not easy. A man came to see me at my house. He was part of the home health care. They were really helpful, actually, the OT, the PT, all the things. And he really listened deeply. He looked at the art on my wall and he pulled one of my paintings down and he said, "Tell me about this one." It was, of course, the piece that I had painted about the emergency department, what my interactions with them had been, and their refusal to give me any kind of pain relief for all those visits, and their refusal to believe me or to listen with the intent to understand. They'd already judged me before I walked to the door. On paper, I can present a certain way, and I wasn't exactly communicative when I entered that emergency room. I needed help. I was in trouble. We've been over this. I don't want to cling to that story either. That's another identification. I mean, you might listen to these and be a person who's perfectly healthy and has had no surgeries whatsoever. And you may think I have a martyr complex. Who knows how I will be pathologized? I have a friend who's been told he's bipolar because his doctors even do not understand that the Parkinson's meds he was on and the way Parkinson's has presented in him causes tremendous anxiety and paranoia and a mood swing that resembles some things in the DSM-V. There are people who are slinging words around like narcissist and things like that. They're usually the people who are narcissistic who say things like that, which is pretty funny. If you don't know mythology, do the work. It's not what we think. We've watered some things down. Our American habits are, if you don't mind me saying, lazy. And I say specifically American because I know a lot of people who live in other countries who are really quite deeply thoughtful and reflective about these things. Not everybody. I mean, you can't say a whole country. Like, everyone in Switzerland is reasonable and diplomatic. Of course not. One thing I won't tolerate is intolerance in myself. When I feel that language, those identifications creeping in. A woman in the store yesterday said to her daughter, a teenager, a gawky, pony-leg, knobby-kneed teenager, "Did that woman say, 'excuse me,' or did she just push you out of the way?" And I didn't realize she was speaking to me and about me. And she was glaring at me, and I said, "I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, excuse me?" She said, "Yeah, excuse you." I did say, "Excuse me." I got a little bit defensive, and then I thought, what's her trip? And I paused for a second. I just said, you know what? I'm going to let her trip. She's trying to teach her daughter to be more assertive. I'm just an actor on a stage. I don't even really exist in her world. That's the problem. the unconsciousness of objectifying another human being based on their sight or who you think they are, making all kinds of assumptions. And I assume she has a little bit of a complex, perhaps. All this happened within a split second, We make judgments. Who knows what was going on there? She must have come in the store looking for a fight. And that's fine too, but I wasn't going to join it because I didn't have to. Which leads me to my last point. We can observe and really sit and pause or sit and reflect only when we are grounded, only when we have our basic needs met. For example, safety. If I don't feel safe, I can't utilize the skills that I have to reflect, to be more conscious, compassionate, empathetic, and caring. If I'm feeling loved and strong and safe and all the things, which is a lot to ask to be in place. If I'm feeling like my medication has crossed the blood-brain barrier correctly for Parkinson's, and I can walk and my thoughts are clear, I could offer that woman some love and say, wow, imagine a world in which you were always on guard for someone to bump into you, and that was the disrespect that you were shown by cultures outside of your own. Imagine the misery that would cause and the humiliation her daughter must suffer daily with such an angry mother. Again, I don't know the story. If I imagine the story, that's still a story. So we can do this thing called asking. We can say, depending on the moment, hey, what's going on? You okay? There used to be this hashtag online. It was very popular for a while. It's probably still there. It's hashtag you okay, sis? That was for victims of abuse and domestic abuse, more specifically. You okay, sis? Well, are you? And if you're not, do you have agency? Do you have a way to get through it? Maybe not alone. What can I do to help? Maybe nothing. What can anyone do? If we don't honor our own path and find language that works for us, nobody can help us. We know this. I know this. I haven't mastered any of the things that I ever talk about in these morning notes. I just talk about what's on my mind and some things observed. And I ask, is this useful? If it's not, cherry pick or take what you want and move on. Hopefully one of the future ones will be. I don't want to put music in here or flashing images or anything like that. I just have this on in case you're driving or walking or sitting in a hospital bed like I was. I poured through podcasts and talks and TED Talks. And as Gavin Mogan likes to say, shed talks. Speaking of strong people, speaking of humans who are doing superhuman things, Gavin Mogan is at least as far along in Parkinson's as I, and his partner has cancer and is barely able to move and speak without excruciating pain. And he has 2 young kids. And yet he puts into the world a playful, whimsical, joyful, reverent, loyal vibe. And he cares a lot. And he's not afraid to be vulnerable and say, I care. In the age of, I don't give a, he says, I care. I give a fuck. I do. And who am I anyway? That's exactly the question. It's rhetorical, I know. Surprise! Let me know what you come up with. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.